And then when you mention beer, the first thing that comes to mind with most consumers is, you mean you're mixing alcohol with cannabis?
Right.
And so we say, no, it's non-alcoholic beer.
Welcome to another Manapod podcast. Our guest today is someone you're going to want to know. He's Dr. Keith Villa, creator of Blue Moon Beer, and now co-founder of Ceria Beer, a craft non-alcoholic beer that also comes with infusions of THC and cannabis. He has a PhD in brewing science and fermentation biochemistry from University of Brussels. And not too many folks have that distinguished degree. So welcome, Keith. Good to have you here.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. So thank you for having me on. Yeah, hopefully we can have some fun today and also get some tidbits of information to your listeners.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, Keith, I have a quick question. I noticed on an interview that you did on the news that you have a testing lab, a secret testing lab in your garage. Is that true?
Yeah. It's a complete little brewery. It looks like a garage from the outside, but on the inside, it's a high-tech stainless steel, modern little brewery that can produce up to 2 barrels, which is 62 gallons of basically any beverage, beer or any type of beverage. So we
need to get one of those, I think.
That's awesome. I saw the garage door and the door opener. So I wasn't sure if that really was a garage or if that was your private testing lab. So that was cool.
Yeah.
So how did you start Syria Beer?
Well, I retired from Blue Moon, and my wife and I decided to look into the realm of cannabis because it was legal here in Colorado. It's been legal since 2012. And I was doing little bits of experiments with cannabis. And we said, let's figure out a way to bring cannabis to the masses in a socially acceptable format. Because as you know, smoking is becoming more and more unacceptable in a social situation. Yeah. Regardless if it's tobacco or cannabis. And there are a lot of people who have allergies, asthma, or maybe some other allergy to smoke, who just can't be around it. And we said, okay, let's figure out how to get cannabis into a beverage that makes it socially acceptable. And by the way, we can also designate how many milligrams of THC are on the package so that people can start to learn how much it takes to affect them, just like alcohol. People know if they have a Bud Light or a Coors Light or a Miller Light, one can is not going to put them on the ground drunk. Whereas they know if they have a couple shots of tequila, they're going to feel a buzz.
Right.
So inherently, people know how to gauge their reaction to different types of alcohol. But most people don't have a clue as to how many milligrams of THC will get them intoxicated. So part of our effort is also to educate people in that respect. And so we launched in 2018 after figuring out, number one, how to make a great tasting non-alcoholic beer, because that's really difficult.
Which you succeeded at, I must say. Right. Mike and I tried them, and they're absolutely delicious.
Delicious, yes, they were excellent.
Thank you very much. And by the way, ours come in at 0.0%, so there's not even a trace of alcohol. Even though the current label says less than 0.5, they actually clock in at 0.00.
And they're low-cal too, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah. So we figured out how to make that. We figured out how to get cannabis into a water-soluble format. And then we came up with our branding. A lot of people ask, where does the name Syria come from? Well, Syria actually comes from two sources. Number one, Ceres, the Roman goddess of agriculture. You could see her profile adorning our labels. And she's got a really nice a laurel on her head made up of cannabis leaves and hop cones, which is appropriate. And Syria also comes from the campus in Belgium, where I got my PhD in brewing. The name is actually It's the Ceria campus, but it's an acronym in French that stands for the Center for Teaching and Research in the Food Industries.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so shortened up in French, the acronym is Ceria. And when my wife and I launched our company here in the States, there were over 7,500 operating little breweries, again, when we launched. And so of those 7,500 odd breweries, they basically took all the cool names. So we couldn't come up with a cool name. And so we said, okay, let's use Syria, the campus where I got my PhD. And that wasn't trademarked here in the States or anything. So we said, yeah, let's do it. So we did. And from that point on, 2018, December, we launched, and we've been in business ever since.
That's great. That's great. Now you're selling the cannabis. You don't call it beer. I mean, what do you call it? A cannabis. What do you call it?
That's a good question, because since it's not federally legal, it's a state by state operation you have to go through to figure out what to call the beverage. So, for example, in California, that's our California THC label. We're not allowed to call it beer, and we're not allowed to use any beer-related terms. So it's called a cannabis infused beverage. And,
okay.
And then in the little storyline here, we put together a little story to kind of let the consumer figure out what type, what variety, what style of beer this is. Because, of course, as a consumer, you want to know, is it a stout? Is it a porter? Is it an imperial IPA? What the heck is that? And so we put the verbiage together to say, okay, it's an IPA, but we can't call it, we can't even write IPA in the state of California. So yeah, it's really tough. However, in Colorado, the label here, it says Indie Wave IPA. They let us call it a non-alcoholic malt beverage. So
that's nice.
Malt beverage.
Yeah. So it's a little bit, well, it's just crazy because it's, you have to go state to state.
And that's infused, right? That one is infused. Yes. They're both infused. Okay.
Yes.
And the one in California, that you're selling that now in California.
Correct.
But you have to go through a cannabis pharmacy to get that beer.
A dispensary, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
And so you can see the difference. And this is our non-infused IPA.
That's the one we had. Yeah.
Infused. So a lot of people say, "Oh, am I going to accidentally drink the infused one and get high or whatever?" And it's like, no. Number one, those labels are very, very different,
very distinct. Yes.
And number two, the cannabis one here, it has a childproof end like that. It's that type that you have to figure out how to peel off. Sometimes it's even adult proof. And then,
especially if you're high.
Yes. Or it has this type of opening, which again is child-proof. You have to figure out how to pop it open and slide it and then drink from it. Whereas our regular non-infused has a standard, pull top opening. So there's a lot of differences. And of course, the cannabis one has the warnings, the THC warnings and everything. So the non-infused has no warnings. And so and as you guys probably know, anything with cannabis is highly regulated.
Yeah.
You have to go to a dispensary to buy it. I mean, yeah, you could buy it from the guy down the street wearing a trench coat or whatever. But if you want to do it legally, you go to a dispensary. And the dispensary, they have to track it back. There's a system, it's called the metric system that California and Colorado use to follow cannabis products from the seed to the growing, to the extraction, to the sale in the dispensary. So it's closely tracked. And if you tried to do that in the world of alcohol, you probably couldn't do it because it's so strict. In alcohol, the world of alcohol, barley is grown, you crush it, you mash it, you ferment it, you age it, all that. And then all of a sudden you've got beer, and it's, you could probably, with a lot of work, detective work, trace that back and keep tabs. But in the end, who cares? I mean, as long as you have a great tasting beer in your hand and maybe a burger in this hand or a hot dog, it's like, hey.
Now, let me ask you, with your beverage, Do you eat more food? Do you have 2 burgers in because you're drinking this and you got that
The munchies?
yeah, the munchies.
It's, so you could get the munchies, but we do. We're working on another version of our IPA that has THC plus THCV. THCV, they call that the skinny cannabinoid because it is reported to give you a little shot of energy, but its main job is to act as an appetite suppressant. So
Yes, please.
Oh, I'll take that. Okay, I'm in. When does that come out?
Can you put that in an eyedropper too, so we can just?
Yeah, so that one we're hoping to get that one out later this year. But the current one has THC plus CBD, so it's just a great beer to get buzzed in a way that you would get buzzed with an IPA with alcohol. So
Right.
IPAs with alcohol typically come in at around 6 to 8% ABV, and if you want an imperial IPA, of course, that's like 8 to 11%. But in that 6 to 8% range, most people drink a pint of that, and they're going to get a buzz. And so we thought, okay, our IPA with cannabis, let's make sure that most people get a buzz. So it has 10 milligrams of THC plus 10 of CBD, because what we found and what a lot of people experience is that with cannabis, if people take a hit of like 10 milligrams or more of THC, some people start to become a little bit anxious and just shaky, paranoid, nervous. And so we thought, okay, let's match that up 1-to-1 with CBD so that the buzz is really mellow and people stay as mellow as possible and minimize that nervousness or that anxiety that they may otherwise pick up on. So our this beer, the IPA, has 10. It's a 1-to-1 with 10 milligrams, and then our Grainwave Belgian White, which is kind of like Blue Moon, has 5 milligrams of THC alone, no CBD. Because what we found is that 5 milligrams for most people, not everybody, but for most, 5 milligrams basically allows you to relax. It's almost like having a Blue Moon beer. If you have a can of Blue Moon beer, again, you're not going to fall down on the ground drunk. You're going to feel relaxed. And so we thought, let's do the same with this particular Belgian white. And so it has 5 milligrams of THC, which again, leads to more of a relaxed state of mind versus a buzz or a high.
So let's take a turn for a minute, though, because in a lot of states, obviously, this stuff isn't available. And there are probably a lot of people who may not really want to go that direction. But your non-alcoholic, non-infused beer is definitely something that Mike and I would strongly recommend people check out. Now, I noticed I tried to buy some this week, and the closest place is closer to LA than here. And I know you're going to end up being in a lot of distributors from the country, throughout the country. But you can also, the non-alcoholic, non-infused beer, you can buy on your website and you will ship it to people, correct?
That's correct. And it works out 99.9% of the time. It's fine. There's that 0.1%, like today in Colorado, the temperature is 17 degrees right now. And
lovely.
Really?
Whenever you ship products that have no alcohol, whether it's Coke, Pepsi, water,
frozen,
non-alcoholic beer, and it sits on your front step at 17 degrees for more than a few hours, say you're at work and it gets delivered and the porch pirates have not taken off with your goods,
right?
You'll come home and there's a possibility it'll freeze. So that's the only drawback of direct to consumer sales. However, most of the time it's fine. But
yeah.
But you can ship out of Colorado. You can ship to California,
right.
sunny San Diego, and you're good, right?
Right.
Oh yeah.
I have a question. I have a question about the difference between beer, the buzz that you get from beer, and from, let's just call it the THC CBD one. Is it 1-to-1? Would you say if I drank one of your THC beer, your THC beverage, that I would get the same buzz as one beer or two?
It's close. I would say
Mike's under the table with one beer, so use that as a reference.
I would say it's close. 5 milligrams is similar to about a 5 to 6% ABV beer.
Okay.
10 milligrams is similar to probably a 8 to 11% beer. So when you drink that, but the buzz is different because with cannabis, it's kind of well, it depends again on what the makeup of the cannabinoids are, but pure THC, it's kind of a head mind buzz. Whereas with alcohol, it's head, but you're also it's hard to describe the alcohol buzz.
Well, Larry slurs when he drinks alcohol. So why don't you pop one open, Larry, and let's listen to you.
Yeah. And Mike wants to kiss everybody. So, there are all kinds of different reactions
for that. Are you kidding? I kiss everybody anyway. So,
so your website is CeriaBrewing.com?
Yes, CeriaBrewing.com.
Okay.
And then for the infused one, it's I think it's CeriaInfused.com.
Okay, but that you can't order online. Yeah, that you have to go to a dispensary for that.
Absolutely correct. It's illegal. I would go to jail and be traded nightly for a pack of menthols, and I'm not proud of that. I don't want to do that.
Mike does, but
yeah.
but
so we can, like you said, you can get those in California. We just have to find the place. And do most dispensaries carry your beverage, or is that hit and miss?
Well, we just started out last September in California, so we're still getting out there. I think we're up to about 100 dispensaries over there.
Oh, wow!
So we're spreading out because beer is such a new thing when it comes to cannabis. A lot of people, they know you can smoke it. They know there are edibles, and some people are familiar with drinkables, but they're mainly familiar with drinkables in the form of products like can or those type of seltzer-like products. A lot of people aren't familiar with beer. And then when you mention beer, the first thing that comes to mind with most consumers is, you mean you're mixing alcohol with cannabis?
Right.
And so we say, no, it's non-alcoholic beer. And then you have to explain and educate. So that's why the launch of our products is always just a little bit slower, because you have to educate people. A lot of people will avoid it because they'll say, oh, I can't drink a combination of alcohol and cannabis. That's going to put me under the table. And it's like, no, this is only cannabis. So once you educate people and get them to try it, then they say, oh, okay, I get it. It's illegal to combine those and sell them. And then they say, well, okay, this is just cannabis. I get it. Okay, now I'll try it. I'll buy it.
I hear people are getting arrested. It's called poly DUIs, where they're mixing pot and alcohol, and they have such a buzz going that when they get pulled over, they're being arrested for poly DUI. Have you heard of that?
I'm glad you were able to talk about it now. I know it was a real problem for you when it first happened, but
I know
it's good that you're bringing that up for other people to learn from.
Right, but I think this is great. I think this beverage is awesome. I can't wait to try it.
Well, and I actually want to talk now about whether you get the infused or non-infused, about the taste profile of this. I'm not a huge beer drinker. I did drink Blue Moon because I thought it had a really good soft taste. A lot of beers are bitter, and some people like that. I never liked IPAs, but both of your beers, the Belgian Ale and the IPA, are very smooth and tasty, and there's not a bite to it. There's no bitterness to it. And I think people need to know that, because there might be a lot of people who are like, nah, I'd never drink an IPA. This one you would.
Yeah, I try to design the beers to be as smooth and easy to drink as possible, because in Belgium, when you get your brewing education over there, a lot of things they try to drill into your head are practical things. Number one, make sure that the beer tastes good and is drinkable, meaning you can enjoy more than one if you want. And number two, try to make them so that they go well with food.
Yeah.
So you make your beer so it doesn't overpower any particular dish. And and so I've followed those loose rules from Belgium, and whether it was with Blue Moon or with our Syria beers. And we just try to make them really easy to drink so people can enjoy themselves and socialize. Because at the end of the day, that's what our business is all about, is having products available to socialize.
Right. Well,
Right.
Mike and I are definitely going to try the infused ones. We've already tried the non-infused ones and can't recommend it enough. We're going to try the other ones. And of course, we'll do an update with you after we do, or maybe while we're doing it, which could be interesting. But it's CeriaBrewing.com. We'll put a little thing at the bottom there. You can order it online. It probably will be available to you in outlets. I checked Bevmo. That's not there yet, but I'm sure you're going to get in there. But you know, it's easy shipping, and you can read all about it. You can find out more about Keith and his wife. By the way, we need to mention that she's the CEO and co-founder of the company. And I think your daughter works in it as well, right?
Right. Our daughter is Catherine.
She's probably the chairman of the board.
She keeps things going. That's for sure. She's a real hard worker, and she handles a lot of the marketing and the cannabis side of the business. And then my wife, as CEO, she's kind of into everything, managing everything. And then myself, I don't just kick back and relax. I wish I could.
You're just the brewmaster. That's all you do.
I have a menopause question for you, Keith. Now, have you reached the ripe age of 50 yet?
Yes.
Yeah, you are. So you are a menopause man. Okay. You're going into the menopausal years of your life. But it seems like you're following your passion. Have you always followed your passion, or is this a second career that you have just created over the last 20 years? What is it?
I've been a brewer since the very beginning. I originally wanted to become a pediatrician, but then I figured out that you could get a PhD in brewing. So I've been a doctor, a beer doctor, not a people doctor, a beer doctor. And and it's been, for me, just a huge amount of fun over the years, because when you do what you enjoy, it's just like time just flies by.
It's not work. It's not work. Right.
Exactly. It's not work. You enjoy it every day. And pretty soon the days start flying by, the months, the years. And before you know it, 30, 40 years have gone by. And it's like, where did the time go? This was, and it's still fun. So, because now what we're doing is, I did everything with Blue Moon. I did everything I wanted to do in the world of alcoholic beer. And Blue Moon is usually credited with kickstarting that craft beer revolution. Although Sam Adams, Sierra Nevada, they were there before Blue Moon, but they still had a lot of flavor, whereas Blue Moon was this gateway beer that allowed the typical Bud, Coors, and Miller drinkers to come into the world of craft beer with a gateway beer that was almost like training wheels for them. And then it got them into that hardcore craft world where they could enjoy it or go back and forth through Blue Moon. And to this day, I still get emails from fellow craft brewers who said Blue Moon was their gateway into craft and their gateway into becoming a brewmaster in the craft beer world. So
That's awesome. So you sold Blue Moon to Coors, correct?
I signed it over, but it's a little bit complicated, because in the beginning they gave me funding to start Blue Moon.
Oh, okay, all right. Mm-hmm.
But that was back in 1994, and at that time they said they wouldn't let me brew it in Golden, Colorado, because they were afraid of contamination, cross contamination, and all that. So I brewed it in upstate New York, and then they wouldn't let me brew it until 2001.
Wow.
Sorry, 2005 in Golden. So it was a good 10 years after I launched. And during those 10 years, I was distributing through the Coors distribution network. But the problem was nobody at the Coors facility, they did not like the beer. I remember Pete tasted it and didn't like it. And Bill wouldn't even taste it. He didn't want to put it in his mouth. And the people just didn't, it was so foreign and so new in 1995. And it's funny because even the chains back then would take it, but drop it. Safeway, Kroger, Publix, they'd take it on. And after about 3 months, they'd give up on it because they'd say, nobody's buying this. It's just too strange. It's Belgian. That's number one. Number two, it's brewed with coriander and orange peel. And by the way, it has oats and wheat. And back then people would say, who's going to drink that? So
what happened to it? I mean, it took off down the road.
Because from 95 until about 2001 is when it started hitting critical mass. It took about 6 years of hard work, just walking the streets from bar to bar. The first thing I did was I figured out we have to get an orange garnish there, because here's a cloudy beer that people didn't want to drink because it was cloudy. They thought something was wrong with it. Even bartenders would look, they'd serve and they'd say, oh my gosh, something must be in the lines. It's cloudy. And it's like, no, it's designed to be that way. Because, I mean, you guys, you're probably way younger than me, but put your minds back in 1995. 1995, the world of craft beer was in its infancy. I mean, really, really to the point where the number one selling, in fact, the top 10 selling craft beers back then, number one was George Killian's Irish Red. That was number one.
Oh, wow.
And then you had like Boston Lager after that, then Red Wolf from Anheuser-Busch. You had all these amber-colored ales and lagers. That's what people considered as craft beer. So when you had a Belgian beer that was hazy, cloudy, brewed with wheat and everything, it was, people thought I was wacky. They said, how in the world are you going to do this? And I remember the first thing I did was, okay, we got to get this so it's like a theater, so it really stands out in a crowd. And so in a good way, because cloudy beer stood out, but in a bad way. So I thought, okay, we're going to garnish it with an orange. And I found out right away that bars didn't carry oranges back then routinely. They carried lemons for cocktail making and for iced teas, and they carried limes to chop up a lime and put it into Corona or the Mexican beers, that was the ritual back then, as it is now. But oranges were virtually non-heard of in bars. And so what I would do is pick out a strategic bar in every city where Blue Moon was, and then based on sales, because to me, that's all I had back then. It was just sales. So I'd get a bar that had the highest sales. I'd go in, I would take bags of free oranges and say, okay, look, here's oranges. Can you please slice it so it's round like a moon, like a blue moon? Make a nick in it and garnish it on the glass, and then give it to the customer. And of course, the bartenders and the bar owners, they'd say, well, I don't know if that's going to work. And we'd say, well, try it, please. And they did, and it really worked. And people in a bar, people would see this hazy beer going by with a garnish of orange, the server bringing it to a table, and people would say, what is that? And they say, oh, that's a Blue Moon. And they'd say, oh, I'll try that. And so they would try it and they would like it. So and then what happened was people went from being afraid of it to trying it and falling in love with it, and then recommending it to their friends. So it really took off in that way. And that's what took so long. Is building that all across the US. And then I created that garnish in 1997. And that was right after, it was like 2 years of hard work. I launched September 14th, 1995. That's the day I launched Blue Moon. And then,
wow, remember exactly.
Oh gosh, it was traumatic when people chains started dropping it. It's like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Because I love the beer, because I'd been in Belgium getting my PhD, and I said, this style is awesome. People in the States have to find out about it. And I did my take on it. I didn't do an exact replica of the Belgian beers. Mine has Valencia orange. It's more orangey, has higher alcohol than a Belgian white from Belgium. Mine uses malted wheat, which is more, has more malt flavor versus the raw wheat. So for an American palate, mine at the time I thought was more apt for people to just pick up and sip and get, just really like it. But it it was tough because I did that orange garnish, 1997. Then I created that iconic glass, that swooshy glass in 1998. I didn't create it. I borrowed it heavily from the, if ever you drink a German Weiss beer, the Bavarian.
Hefeweizen, yeah. Yes.
Weizen beers. You'll notice the relationship of those glasses to Blue Moon. It's a very similar style because quite honestly, that glass really highlights the look of a Weizen beer. And I thought, that's perfect for Blue Moon. So I worked with the glass company to kind of retool it a little bit and make it Blue Moon. So that was 1998. And then put together the glass with the orange garnish in 98. And then sales were growing. And by 2001, that's when sales just became almost exponential. We couldn't make enough beer. And then it was 2005 that the folks in Golden said, hey, this is really growing. Let's try to brew it. And so they did, and it grew successfully. And it became $1 billion brand. And it was
wow.
So it just took off, and I launched.
Did he drink it after that? After it started selling like wildfire, did he like it after that? Good for him. Way to go, Pete. Yeah. I've got $1 billion company here now. All right.
Well, and again, that's the beauty of that story for our manopause.com followers is that you followed your dream through ups and downs and doubts and everything else, made it a success, and didn't just sort of sit back and say, okay, well, I'm getting older, I might as well stop dreaming. You kept on going, and now you've created this other company that is going to have the same slope of success, because Mike and I are definitely going to keep it in business.
Oh yeah.
And so, I think you'll be an inspiration to a lot of the guys over 50 that come on our site to see what's happening. So we really want to thank you for being on here. Dr. Keith Villa, he is co-founder of Syria Beer, CeriaBrewing.com. You can go there and you can order the non-alcoholic, non-infused beer to be delivered to your house, and you want to do that. And then you can check with local dispensaries if you want to try the cannabis and CBD beers.
And you have that on your site, right? A place where they do sell it.
Yeah, there's a store locator.
Right.
Cool.
Store locator.
Well, again, thank you so much for doing this, and we appreciate that. And we'll circle back in a few months and see how everything's going.
That sounds fine. And cheers to you.
Yeah, cheers. Well, I wish I had a can of my Cheers to you.
To you and to all the Menopause listeners. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.